a biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Well, AI is everywhere. Many are denouncing the presence of it and its not so slow creep into our everyday lives. Yet the grace of God is finding plenty of ground for the use of AI for God's kingdom. Simon Hood is known for presenting on the value of AI and harnessing its power to be an influence that builds God's kingdom here on earth. Simon Hood says that AI is a game changer of the most incredible magnitude. However, there is still a lot of misunderstanding and concern from those who are yet untrained. This is where Simon can offer help. At a recent gathering of Christian ministers in Sydney, over 100% of attendees downloaded his material. Such was the cut-through that this material had with those who were attending. And right now we want to welcome to 2020 today, Simon Hood.
Hi Tosh, how are you?
I'm doing
to be with everybody.
I'm doing very well, thank you, and it's wonderful to have you on as a ray of hope in what seems to be a lot of negative conversations springing up about what AI is, what AI is going to do. Some people are talking about how it's the beginning of Skynet and we're going into the days of James Cameron's Terminator, but at the end of the day, it is a tool that God is using right now to do great things for the furtherance of the gospel. What can you share with us about how you stumbled across your journey with AI?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, my journey is that I serve leaders and particularly children leaders and youth leaders around the world, trying to help them to reach this generation for Jesus. That's our goal in our organization called Logos Door. And as part of that, one of the biggest things has been to help people to create resources that they need for their ministry in all sorts of different languages, and been doing that for many years. So with that in mind, AI then has opened up all sorts of different possibilities to help people to create ministry resources in ways that they couldn't do before. So that's been really interesting. But the funny thing was last year, we decided that we needed to do a bit of training with some of our global leaders. And so we set up something called the AI Academy to say, how do we train Christian leaders
that sounds cool.
to use AI? And set up some Zoom calls. And we thought, maybe 100 people would sign up. And we ended up with over 1,250 leaders from 125 countries.
Come on.
Yeah, it's crazy. So for 5 weeks, we then went deeper and deeper into AI, all different types of how to create videos, how to write music, how to study the Bible, how to write lessons, all different things. So, yeah, we kind of fell into it. We didn't quite realize that the need would be so great and so many people would sign up. And we've continued that, and all for the last 12 months now, trying to coach pastors, leaders, youth leaders, children's leaders, parents around the world in the use of AI in ministry. It's been amazing.
And so you stumbled upon the power of AI. You thought you'd run a workshop, thought you were going to get 100, but you got well over 1,000. How did you find your traction with AI in the beginning? How did you see it working for you when you first laid hands on it?
Yeah, no, good question. I actually started using AI when AI graphics came out about 3 years ago. And I discovered it through a phone app. Wow. And in fact, I surprised my team one day because we had a staff meeting and I showed them a number of different images of possible layout designs for our office that were quite crazy. And they loved it. And then I said, all of that was done by AI. And at the time, nobody had heard of AI or used it. So even my team are all creative and they're designers and video makers and animators. And they were amazed. And so that was about 3 years ago. And we've continued to move with AI, realizing that it is a game changer. There's lots of positives. There's lots of negatives about AI. I'm not an AI evangelist. I'm a Jesus evangelist.
Come on.
But I can see that AI is a very useful tool in the same way that the printing press was. And if you think about the power of the printing press 575 years ago, I think it was, and suddenly books could be printed. And so that's why we have the Bible today. That's why we have so many great books today. But we also have a lot of bad books and a lot of evil printing as well. And every technological advance has opened up good possibilities and dangerous possibilities. The internet, the phone, the aeroplane, all of these different things have provided good opportunities and not so good opportunities. I think AI at the moment is a bit like that. Certainly, the future of AI is something to be concerned about in terms of if it goes down certain pathways. But the current AI is really, in some ways, an extension of the internet. It's an algorithm. It's a prediction machine. It's amazing technology, and it can be used in good ways. But what we realise is that people weren't necessarily using it in helpful ways. And that was why we set up this academy. One of the interesting things is when you talk to leaders around the world, how quickly some pastors used AI to create their sermons. And this was a bit of a case in point for us in the AI Academy, that sure, you could ask ChatGPT or Gemini, a chatbot, to write a sermon for you, and it'll probably do a reasonable job, but is that a good thing? And we actually
there is
that and said, yeah.
I was going to say there is an important person called the Holy Spirit who's usually quite involved in sermon writing as well.
Exactly, that's right. And so we use that as a bit of an example of saying, okay, what's good about AI and useful, and what's not so good, and where is the line? And it comes down to some really interesting things. Firstly, of course, writing your sermon and then presenting something from a chat bot is not a great idea. I also not sure that downloading somebody else's sermon and presenting it is either a good idea. I think it's about you in prayer, reading the Bible, understanding the Bible well,
Amen.
And let the Spirit speak through you. That's the point of a sermon. However, when you realize that 95% of pastors in the world today, according to the Conwell College in America, 95% are untrained. And just sit with that for a moment. If 95% of ministers and pastors are untrained, what does that mean? So suddenly, AI gives us the ability, if we use it well, to be able to help dig into the Bible, so that we don't suggest AI writes your sermon, but AI might help you understand a passage. If you're a pastor and you don't own a commentary, but you do have a mobile phone, then maybe if you know how to ask a good question, you'll get a good answer. And so, let me give you an example, Tosh, where I was mentoring a pastor in the middle of Ethiopia, a good friend of mine, young pastor, church planter. And we were looking at some of the festivals in the book of John. And so we're reading the Bible, we're discussing it, we're trying to understand the meaning of it. And then I thought, I wonder what this festival that Jesus went up to, what does it mean? I know I've read about it. I've probably got a book somewhere that explains the background of the festival, because the passage didn't explain the cultural significance of it. So I asked the chatbot, what is this festival, the water festival? Explain it to me. And so it gave me the historical and cultural background of the festival that Jesus was going to. And amazingly, it also gave me things that are not in the passage but are quite relevant. The fact that at the end of this festival, there's a water ceremony. And in that particular chapter of John, it said that Jesus said, I am the living water. And so suddenly, if you understand the history and the culture of that passage, you would understand why Jesus said, I am the living water. But the passage itself doesn't explain that, because it's written to a Jewish audience who all knew that. So suddenly AI can help me dig into a passage if I ask a good question. And we want people to use AI well for that reason and train them in how to do it.
Helping you make sense of life, culture, and current events from a biblical perspective. 2020 on Vision.
You were sharing with us before, mate, about how you were mentoring someone overseas in the developing world, and you used AI to do some research for you, and kind of along the idea of not replacing the voice of God, but filling out a bunch of the grinding research work. How are you finding that play out across the world right now?
Well, it's an extremely helpful way of training people, because for those that are not as familiar with AI, you ask AI a question. It's called a prompt. You simply ask, I'd like to know this. A little bit like a Google search, except that AI then will create an answer for you. And the basic idea is, if you ask a bad question or a simple question, you could get any sort of answer. Same as if you ask a human a question without proper explanation, you'll get any sort of answer. With AI, you want to ask a very good question, and you will get a good answer. And I find that when I'm asking AI about the Bible, for example, I frame the question, and so you say things like, "I would like you to answer this question from," in my case, I might say, "a Reformed theological position. Give me this answer from the NIV Bible. And what I'd like you to do is to look at it where you only use biblical content." So if you frame the question first and then ask your question, it will give you a much better answer than if you just say, "Can you tell me what the story of David and Goliath means?" It will give me a much richer answer if I've given it some good framing. And a lot of our training, and there's manuals you can download, we've written on all of this stuff if you'd like to learn, and just great tips for how to engage with the Bible. But even down to things like, help me understand how this verse or this passage fits in with the context of the book that it's in, or how does this fit into God's big story? It will give you some really good ideas about that. And so while it's absolutely most important that you read the Bible yourself and that you pray yourself and let God speak to you, I think what AI does is helps you with some of the ideas around it. And I even did this with the parable of the talents, a story I know very well. And I was teaching my children at church, and I thought, I wonder if I know what this talent means. I've told the story many times. I've heard others preach on it. But I asked AI, tell me more about this talent. What is it worth? What would it have meant at the time? And I discovered that one talent, and this might blow your mind, is 20 years of wages. And I always thought, a talent, particularly the guy. So you remember, it's a Bible story of the parable of the talents.
Yeah.
And the one guy gets 5 talents, one guy gets 2 talents, one gets 1. And you think the one that gets 1 talent is a bit ripped off. He just gets 1 talent. But then when you actually go, the value of that is 20 years of wages, then you go, that's a very significant amount of money that he was given that he did nothing with. And I then double checked, because I thought, I'm not sure I knew it was worth that much. So I did double check. And that's the other thing with AI. Don't trust it. You've got to realize that it's a machine. And so you always check what AI has written, and you always double check the meanings of it. So I never just take AI as the only answer. But that then helped me realize something about that story that was that helped me tell it better to the children. And so AI did some of that research for me.
Now, for those who might be new to the conversation of actually using AI, you mentioned a moment ago it's similar to doing a Google search, but AI will do something different. If we could just drill right into that moment, pull a thread on that for a second, what kind of results does a Google search yield as compared to an AI search? How are the two different?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Now, of course, Google have now employed AI, so you might find that the first answer you get with AI with Google now is an AI answer. But the fundamental difference is that a Google search for the last 20 years has searched the internet to find documents, websites, things that match as closely as their algorithm can determine that will give you an answer for what you're looking for. So if I said I want to find restaurants in Dubbo, it's going to search the internet and find somebody that's put up something about a restaurant in Dubbo, and it's going to give me a list. And what AI does is it's read everything on the internet. It understands different patterns. It will actually create an answer for you. So it may draw on data that it's got, but it basically will create a new answer every single time. So while it does draw on data, it's technically not drawing on recreating a database. It doesn't sort of copy and paste in the same way that maybe Google does. It actually creates. And what it actually is a prediction machine. So it actually crunches massive amounts of data to try and predict what answer you're looking for. So it's a fundamental different technology. It's remarkable in a lot of ways because even the people that create it don't exactly know how it works.
What?
But so that's sort of how it works. But if you go to a what's called a chat bot, which is a text-based AI, like ChatGPT is maybe the most well-known one. Gemini is the one that Google have, and then there's other ones. Then simply you just ask a question. And what I was talking about before is how you ask that question. Yeah. So if I go back to my example, if I said, tell me what the story of David and Goliath means, and that's the only question I ask, it's going to likely give me a reasonable description of what the story means, but probably based on a very common way that people talk about David and Goliath across the world, it'll give me a very moral answer. And it might even say the point of the message, and I've tried this, the point of the passage is, if you face a giant, stand up to it and God will help you knock it over. Now, if you're a pastor, you might go, yeah, I'm not sure that's actually the main message of the story of David and Goliath. You know, it fits into God's big story of God looking after his people, and it's part of his promises, and it's a mirror pointing to Jesus. So if I frame the question that way and say, I would like you to answer this from my theological position, which is an evangelical reformed position, where I believe that the Old Testament points to Jesus, could you explain what the story of David and Goliath means? It will give me a much better answer. It's as simple as that. So ask a good question, you get a good answer. And, you know, that's how it works.
And so with a Google search, oftentimes you get a page full of links that you can go and explore yourself. But with the chatbot will go and explore those and summarize what it finds and then bring that answer to you, won't it?
Yes, it will. And that's what's good and bad about AI, because it is determining what you're trying to find. Whereas a Google search, you might have to search through 10, 15, 20 different pages to find what you're looking for. AI does the work for you. So it can make you lazy. And I think that's sometimes what people feel is a danger of AI, is that we're not thinking. My experience is that if you use it well, you'll actually think more. I've learned more now in the last couple of years with AI than I probably learned in 20 years, because I'm digging, I'm being creative, I'm brainstorming with AI, I'm developing new ideas, I'm exploring, so how you use it will determine, whether it makes you lazy or not.
And so understanding the nature of it as well, as an aggregator, as a gatherer of information, as a collator of different data points and bringing it to you, understanding it for what it is, rather than trusting it and giving over your critical thinking is really where the sweet spot is. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's right. And then it's a time saver on a lot of administrative tasks as well. And I think that's where we're trying to help leaders to say, your main goal as a pastor is to communicate the Bible and to relate to people. So if AI can help you with some of the mundane tasks that take up a lot of your time, maybe you'll have more time to spend with people and more time to spend in the scriptures. I had when we got those 1,250 people signed up, we had quite a long entry form because we didn't just want anybody. So we had this big form people had to fill in to join the academy. The problem then when we had 1,250 is I had a massive spreadsheet of answers in all different languages from all different countries, and there were 1,250 lines times about 20 questions. Now imagine how long it would take me to read it, translate it, summarize it. So what I did is I put each column, and I do it safe. I didn't put email. I never put names or emails into AI. So you got to treat AI like social media and go, don't put anything that's not safe. Don't put emails. Don't put personal details. Any of that. Don't put any of that into AI. But I was able to put 1,250 different question lines in multiple languages into AI and say, could you summarize this for me into the key questions? And in 20 seconds, it had summarized, translated, and given me all the key questions across 1,250 lines of data. And I did that for all 20 questions. So in about 5 minutes, all that massive spreadsheet was summarized. I knew exactly what people were looking for in English, and amazing.
You were talking before about how you're able to use AI with your mentoring work that you're doing with pastors around the world. The developing nations are finding use for it. And could you bring us into a bit of the moving parts of how you're seeing AI develop inside of ministry use for the furtherance of God's kingdom?
Yeah, it's amazing actually to see God's people at work around the world. And if you think the point of what Jesus said in the Great Commission is to take the gospel to every nation, every tribe, every people, part of that is the challenge of how do we communicate the gospel? And AI is allowing us to do some things that were not possible before, and to do some things in ways that are much faster. So we've seen some incredible things happen in the last year or so in terms of how the gospel can go further. So the first one is in translation. So one part of our work worldwide is helping a movement which is called the sport movement. And it actually has teams doing ministry through sport in over 245 countries and territories. It's remarkable work. And we've helped to create about 200 leadership and discipleship resources for that. And of course, it's done firstly in English. And now we can use AI to translate the videos. Wow. And we've now got almost 1,000 of those translated. And AI does an amazing job of not just translating the audio, but now it can reanimate people's lips. So it's quite extraordinary when you see somebody who's recorded a video in English and yet speaking it in Spanish or Hindi or Mandarin, but their lips are moving at the same time as the Spanish. It's amazing. So that's one way AI has helped. Another way is that in many of the places we work are not easy to do gospel work. And one of our leaders that we help coach works in a tribal area of a country where it's very dangerous for the gospel. And he was doing children's work there and creating a vacation Bible school for the children in this village. And he wanted to create visuals for it. And The problem is you can't have photos of that area because it's too dangerous. You don't want to pinpoint anyone in particular. Child safety is a problem everywhere anyway. He was able then to create visuals of the types of people that he was working with using AI that were completely safe, because they're not real. They weren't real people. They weren't identifying any children. And yet he said they were perfectly in line with what those children and families could relate to. So it enabled them to do that. In another country that's quite restricted, where they do a lot of training videos, it's quite dangerous for their hosts to be seen on YouTube, because suddenly they're a target.
Yeah.
And yet they want to make it personal. So what they can do now is that they can record a video but replace the human presenter with what's called an avatar, or an animated version of themselves, so that they're not putting anyone's life at risk. So they now can do all of these different videos that were very difficult to do using avatars made by AI. So that's another example of incredible things. And then right across Africa, we're seeing places where they've really wanted to create African animations or songs or things like that, which they haven't had the budget and the skills to do. And so in a lot of our trainings, we train them how to do animation, and they're able to create Bible stories in their style in ways that they literally couldn't do before. And so that's, again, opening ways of communicating in a remarkable way, on top of many people doing what I've explained before, which is Bible research and being able to sort of understand passages better. So there's I could give you many more examples, but there's some of the different examples. I've got a really funny one. Well, it's funny and powerful because translation is not just about language. I have a son who loves Minecraft, and Minecraft is currently the most popular computer game in the world. Yeah. And I had a chat to him because he was trying to get a particular type of armor in Minecraft. It's kind of a challenge. And I said to him, you know, the Bible has armor. And he said, really? And I said, you know, let me go and we found Ephesians chapter 6. And I read through that, the armor of God. And I said, how does that, like, what armor does this particular, the helmet, what would that mean in Minecraft? Or what would the belt of truth mean in Minecraft? And he gave some really good answers. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? So I then he went back to playing Minecraft, and I thought, I wonder if I could create a video about this. So I went to a chatbot and said, I want to communicate the story of the armor of God, or the principles of the armor of God in Minecraft language. Help me communicate it. And it translated the passage into Minecraft armor that was really powerful. And in fact, I ended up creating a whole animation on Ephesians 6, all done in a Minecraft style. So it's communicating to a subculture in their language. And in fact, I just got a message this week from a church in the UK that used part of their sermon, and they said it was amazing result watching this Ephesians 6 done in a Minecraft style. So yeah, translation can mean lots of things, as well as visual and music and other things as well. Amazing.
And so how far is the reach of the people that you've been training across the globe right now?
Well, yeah, so at least 125 countries are engaged in it. And I'm talking about right across every continent, you know, right across Africa, Middle East, Asia, South America. We have a number of different leaders that we pull in to help us with some of the training. And so, you know, some of our best AI trainers are in Ukraine right now. We trained them a couple of years ago, and then they've used that training to train leaders all across Ukraine. So some of the training we do comes out of Ukraine live. And, we have leaders that speak all different languages. I was just joined into a group today from one of our leaders that was part of the academy from Eswatini, the new name of Swaziland. And
Wow.
he's trained all of his leaders, and he said, could you jump in the group just to help do a bit of coaching? So, yeah, there are leaders in countries all around the world, and everything we do, we provide for free. So everything's downloadable, all the trainings, all the videos, and that's to help multiply it. So I know of the 125 countries, but it will have gone far further than that through other people that download it and use it. So, yeah, really encouraging.
That's amazing, man. And so also for Pastor John and Pastor Jane, who are part of the Vision family listening across Australia or perhaps in other parts of the world across the Pacific as well, the website is max7.org, right? max7.org. And let's say Pastor John, Pastor Jane want to explore this. They're not so familiar with AI, not so confident on computers. What would they expect coming to lay a hold of the free resources that you have there at the website? What would their journey look like as they land on the site?
Yeah. Let me tell you before I answer that Max7 is a library of about 11,000 ministry resources that have been created over the last 20 years, all over the world. And everything is freely downloadable. So when you go to Max7, you can search and find all sorts of resources that you can download tomorrow. Might be a video, a song, training material, a PowerPoint. They're all created by humans for humans.
Amen.
AI is just one part of that. And if you go to max7.org today, you could just put in the search bar AI, and it will give you a whole lot of the resources we've created for AI. The one that I suggest you look for is one that's called Top 10 Practical AI Ideas for Pastors and Leaders. That was the training I did a few weeks ago with the pastors here in Sydney. So Top 10 Practical AI Ideas, or you could search Future Lab in Max7, and it'll show you a lot of the new resources. But that Top 10 Practical Ideas covers, the key things that AI might help you with as a pastor or a leader, to save you time, to help you with administration, to create images, to do translation, and all of those things are in that manual. You can download it. And then in the manual, it'll also give you a link to our YouTube channel where there are a lot of training videos that we've made that are also freely viewable, and that will take you even deeper. In fact, the other thing you'll find on Max7, once you get to the homepage, you'll see up the top there's something called the Max7 Builder, and that's an AI that we have built into Max7 that will allow you to create Bible lessons or games or quizzes or even colouring sheets using AI completely for free. And you just answer a few questions. I've got this number of people. They're this age. I'm looking at this Bible passage. And we've done all the framing for you.
Wow.
Behind the scenes. We've put in really good training into the AI, and then it will give you a draft lesson or a game or something.
Wow.
It's really powerful. That's the Max7 Builder. So yeah, Max7 is a lot of human resources, and then now we're just adding the AI element to it as well to take it further and allow us to do even more to equip churches worldwide with ministry resources.
And so when they go to the site, they use the builder, or they go to the YouTube Academy and they start working there. Again, we're not going to throw away our critical thinking, are we? We're going to use this as a resource to create for us. Then we look over it, refine, listen to the Holy Ghost, listen to our heart, align it with the Word of God, and go forward with that. What results have you seen in Australia with different people coming in and using the resources here?
So across Australia, many Australians have been part of this training as well as around the world. I think we're finding that the AI, the Max7 Builder, has opened up possibilities for people And I use it all the time as well, in terms of, okay, I've got this lesson I need to do, or I'm trying to, and so it gives me, I think it gets me, 60 to 80% of the way there, in the sense of just giving me ideas that I might then say, okay, yeah, no, that would work, or that game, or that set of questions really helps me. And so we're finding many churches are using that already. I think the other side of what we've tried to do is to help create some of the guardrails around it of what's good and what's not so good. And in fact, you mentioned the main one is don't let go of your human agency. Don't let go of your critical thinking, and actually ask the question, how can this help me to be more creative or even sharper in my message? I know of a very well-known preacher, I won't mention his name, but I know for a fact that he runs his sermon through AI to say, could you tell me, is this communicating clearly? And what AI does is it then says, you've repeated yourself, or you might want to explain that point a bit more. I don't think so. Uses it as a bit of a feedback session. It write the sermon for him, but it helps to check things or to ask some good questions. So that's a really interesting use of AI. And there's some of the examples that we've seen. And then, the other side of it, which is what we do, because we've been making Bible videos for many years. So some of your listeners might remember the Oasis program that we made 30 years ago, used all across Australia. And ever since then, we've been making Bible animations, and they're all on Max7. You can download them for free. And some of those took 6 months. In fact, the last one we made took us 18 months to make a 3-minute fully animated video. With AI, I can do a similar thing now in about 3 days. So it saves a lot of money and time, but it also allows us to explore new ways of creating Bible content visually and animation. So, that's been another huge use of AI in what we're doing. Massively
reducing your labour costs as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, it does. And obviously that's a downside of AI, is that it will put some jobs under threat. And to be honest, I think every technological advance has done that. But my gut feel is that it doesn't eliminate creativity. It shifts different industries. And we've seen that already in my own life. I've seen how when I first started, all content was coming from TV stations or radio stations. And in the last 30 years, that shifted, where official stations are only one of many places, and YouTube often comes from somebody's garage or their bedroom, and it's just as popular or more popular. So, industries have changed endlessly, creative industries have, and I think what this does is it starts to raise up the ability for many more people to be creative and create what they're trying to make, and not just people that have big budgets. So I think there's some good sides to it, as well as some difficult sides to it.
Yeah, I think also in the space of the conversation today, where we're talking about taking forward God's kingdom, the results are never really in the heart of any leadership group or board or any church eldership trying to figure out how we can save money. We're trying to figure out how we can get the reach of God going further. Yeah. And if you reduce budgets in one area, those budgets are only going to be spent in another area, because the goal is reaching. It's not about saving, right?
Absolutely. And I know a church in Sydney, and we talked about this at the training, where they have a number, I can't remember, about 5 or 6 different nationalities in their church service. And in the past, what would happen is you would, you might then split and say, okay, the English service is now and the Chinese service will be in an hour's time. And they use simultaneous AI translation that comes through someone's phone. And so in 5 seconds, the sermon goes through a laptop up to the cloud, is translated, and then the person sitting there with their mobile phone chooses what language they want to hear it in, and 5 seconds later, they're hearing the sermon in their language. Now that costs them, I think, about $5,000 a year for for one service a week, every week. But that means that all those different nationalities can worship God together in the same space at the same time. How wonderful is that? And so there are some amazing uses of AI like that open up greater relationships. And that's the point. We want relationship with God, we want relationship with one another, and AI is just a tool. Like PowerPoint is a tool, or a good coffee machine is a tool. They might help. They're not necessary. You don't need it to do ministry, but maybe there are some ways it could help you.
Yes, and for the average everyday Joe out there, or Pastor John or Pastor Jane, it's just a matter of learning the muscle memory of how to use the tool properly. Like, I'm sure when they started the printing press, someone's finger got caught, or someone's arm or hand got caught in the press, and may have even let blood, and news might have gone out that this thing's dangerous, people are getting hurt. But at the end of the day, once the mainstream understanding of it does reach the hearts of the people, it does have a societal impact, and there's no doubt that it is impacting society. Where do you see the future of it going inside the body of Christ as we wrap up in about 3 or 4 minutes?
Yeah, look, that's a very good question. I wish I was a futurist and I could tell you the answer to that, but I think these things settle down. So there was a time when the internet was new, and it was all the buzz, and people were trying to work out how to use it. And now we never talk about it. It's just in the background, and it happens. Same with mobile phones.
Very true.
I think at one level will settle down, and we'll just use it for what it is. In fact, we already are. If you're using Google Maps or any of those other things, you're already using AI. But some of the things I've been talking about, we're training at the moment. There will be a time when we don't need to. People will just understand these things. The future of AI is a bit more complex, because I think there are future theoretical aspects of AI that could be quite dangerous in military terms and economic terms, and that's sort of beyond this type of AI that we're talking about. And so we just need to be wise. I would say don't be fearful right now, because I think it's better that you understand what it is and try it out, so that as things develop, you understand what's happening and you understand the technology a little bit, because we are going to need to be wise, and there will be times where we have to say enough is enough, or no, we're not going to use AI for that. And that takes wisdom. So I'm not saying use it for everything. I'm saying use it as a tool where it's helpful, and use it. Keep in mind the most important thing, which is keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus and communicating the gospel and being connected with the Holy Spirit through prayer and the Father, and read the Bible for yourself. All of those things are the main game. And AI is simply a tool that might help you to dig into some of those things, or help you with some of your administrative tasks. And then I think we're in a good place to be wise.
We've just got about a minute to go. When it comes to administrative tasks, what can the average Joe use AI in with regard to administration of different business areas?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of that. A couple of quick ones. I've recently had times where we've done a brainstorm as a team, and we've got 50 Post-it notes on a sheet. I could take a photograph with my phone and say to AI, transcribe this and put them in categories. Or I could take a sheet of really rough notes and say, type this up and make it neat. I can read spreadsheets. A lot of those things are really quite powerful, and there's much more in that area that you can dig into. And obviously, Microsoft have brought in Copilot and some of these other things that are built in, or they're built into Windows, and there to help with some of those administrative tasks. So yeah, it's changing every day as well. So it's partly look at something that you're doing, and even just do a Google search or ask AI, is there a way that AI might help me with this task? And it might give you some ideas. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Simon Hood, for joining us today here on 2020.
Thank you, Tosh. Thanks, everybody. God bless.
Great having you with us, mate. And if you want to follow up, the website there is max7.org. And also on YouTube, they've got a great YouTube channel called Max7 AI Academy.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.